There were a series of loud cries as the henchmen were caught off guard, falling to the floor one after another and rolling around in pain. In a blink of an eye, the floor was littered with people. Everyone had a fork or a knife lodged so deeply in their thighs that they couldn't even pull it out. What? Duncan couldn't help but be startled by the sight. He had carefully handpicked these henchmen. All of them had gone through extensive training and were highly skilled. Typically speaking, a 10-against-1 battle would have ended in an overwhelming but predictable victory on one side. Yet, never in his dreams would he have expected that all of his men would have fallen just like that. Were cutleries supposed to be this deadly? What? That bastard is this strong? Victoria couldn't help but be shell-shocked by how nonchalant Dustin looked. In her mind, Dustin was just an insignificant small fry. How was he capable of that? Fuck. Turns out he's had some training. Why didn't he act sooner? Terence gritted his teeth, feeling the soreness throughout his body. If Dustin had come to his rescue sooner, he wouldn't have had to get beat up for nothing. Undoubtedly, that bastard just wanted to embarrass him. Rhys seems to be getting better and better at fighting. Florence and the rest were secretly stunned. Although they knew that Dustin was a decent fighter, seeing him end a battle in a single second like that was shocking enough. You want to take revenge on me, but you only brought so few people. That may be a tall order. Dustin stared into Duncan's eyes and continued indifferently. If you break one of your arms and promise never to appear in front of me again, I may consider letting you off this time. Letting me off? After a brief moment of surprise, Duncan burst into menacing laughter. Punk, I'll admit that you've got something in you, and just any henchman is no match for you. However, if you think that victory is in your hands, then you're majorly mistaken. Are you saying you have another trick up your sleeve? A shadow of a smile crossed Dustin's face. Of course, Duncan said with confidence. After all, I'm here for revenge, so of course I made preparations. You're a good fighter, aren't you? Well, I'll bring out someone who is an even better fighter than you now. With that, he clapped his hands twice. Suddenly, two men in tracksuits walked in. One was in his 40s, while the other was in his early 20s. From the looks of it, they had to be father and son. Not only did their faces resemble each other's, but they also had similar builds. Both of them had burly figures sculpted from solid muscles, and veins popped through their skin like earthworms. They looked terrifying. Punk, do you know who they are? Duncan said gleefully. They're the famous Sander father-son duo of the martial world, Cobalt and Flint Sander. The Sander father-son duo? When Terence heard this, his expression immediately changed. Others might not know it, but he knew very well how strong the Sanders were. The son, Flint, was already ranked 13th on the 100 Immortals. Meanwhile, the father, Cobalt, was ranked 2nd. What did being ranked 2nd entail? He was already far past the capabilities of the average person. He could smash rocks with his hands and feet. Rumor had it that when Cobalt was at his peak, he had challenged 27 dojos in Millsburg in a row. Not to mention, he won every single time. That alone was a testament to his immense power. Seeing Cobalt and Flint stride in, shivers ran down Terence's spine. Just who is this bastard? How did he manage to get the Sander father-son duo here? These two were renowned top dogs in the martial world. Either one of them could take on 100 opponents at once. They rarely showed up for anyone. It was definitely no easy feat to have invited these two to a light. Terence, who is the Sander father-son duo? Are they very powerful? Julie asked from the side. Powerful? To the average person, these two are monsters, especially the one named Cobalt. He's an absolutely terrifying freak. He kills like it's nothing. Countless people have died by their hand. Terence said solemnly. As one of the backbone members of the Brooks Corporation, he naturally knew a thing or two about the martial world. What? They're that scary? Julie shrunk behind Terence. Although Florence and the others didn't say anything, they maintained their distance, afraid that they might end up as collateral damage. They had no understanding of the world of martial arts, but from the aura that the Sanders radiated, they were clearly not good people. They couldn't get on the bad side of people like them, no matter what. Punk, if you cross the Sander father-son duo, you're done for. After the shock wore off, Terence couldn't help but laugh at Dustin's fate. Because of Dustin, he got beaten up for nothing, so he was mad. Not to mention, Dustin had stolen his thunder, which caused resentment to build within him. Now that Dustin was down on his luck, he almost couldn't stop himself from clapping and cheering. "You bastard, no matter how good you are at fighting, you're nothing in front of the Sander father-son duo," Duncan said mockingly. "Are they very strong?" Dustin asked. "What? You've never heard of the Sander father-son duo?" Duncan lifted a brow and added, "Fine. I'll give you a grand introduction today. You're going to lose so badly that you have no choice but to admit their superiority. The younger one is Flint, ranked 13 on the 100 Immortals. His father, Cobalt, is even more impressive. He's now ranked second on the 100 Immortals. Do you know what that means? Unless a divine-level martial arts expert appears, he's unmatched. No matter how strong you are, you're nothing in front of number 2 of the 100 Immortals. You won't even last a second." After listening to all that, Dustin remained unaffected. He grunted non-committally and asked, And? Duncan sneered. "Punk, you're truly fearless. It's expected for a small-town bumpkin to be so ignorant. But no worries. You'll learn in a moment how strong the Sander father-son duo is." "Really?" Dustin smiled lightly. "I do want to broaden my horizons." "Very well. I'll grant you your wish." Duncan regarded Dustin like he was on his deathbed. Then, he said to Cobalt, "Master Sander, I'll leave this bastard in your hands. Don't kill him yet, leave him alive for me to play with. Flint, go and meet him." Cobalt wore a cool expression, standing there with his hands behind his back. He had no intention of moving a muscle. Naturally, the second-ranked of the 100 Immortals had a matching ego. If he fought anyone and everyone, then he'd be devaluing himself. In truth, he had zero interest in joining a battle of this level. However, he owed the Doyle family a favor, so he had to show up. "I can solve any problem as long as I'm paid. Don't blame me when I cripple you later," Flint said, slowly approaching Dustin with blazing eyes. His muscular body was absolutely threatening. "And I'll say the same thing to you," Dustin said. "Great. I hope you'll still be so moody later." Flint smiled coldly. He tapped his foot lightly, and his entire figure shot into the air like an arrow leaving the bow. As he got closer to Dustin, he drew his fist back before aiming it toward his abdomen. This punch carried a few tons of force. Even a cow would be blown to smithereens, much less a human being. Dustin didn't attempt to dodge this blow. Instead, he answered it with his own list.